Chinese Lamborghini Owners Club Murcielago is still going. This year's car clearly then a very much more fettled version of the Murcielago than they had last year. This is a brand new car provided by Reiter Engineering, who are Lamborghini's development team, and so far, barring one puncture, they seem to have been almost entirely trouble-free. So there you go. Now do get it refired and away it goes. And I have to say, even in terms of relatively short GT races for Lamborghinis, it is having a very good run so far. Hello everybody, just under 14 hours of the race remain. And we are now properly into the darkness hours here at Le Mans. After a very wet morning, it has taken a while to clear, and we have now got a cool and clear night. It's been dry right from the start after a wet morning warm-up, and conditions now really ideal for fast lapping, and that's borne out by Nicolas Lapierre in the number 4 Oreca Peugeot, which is just about to come in for a pit stop. He's just turned a lap in 3 minutes 26, which is a pretty reasonable race pace. He's got another half a dozen cars around him doing similar, and Davidson 3 minutes 24 in the last lap. Looking here at the Porsche, which Timo Scheider is taking over or handing over at the moment. He shares with Marco Holzer and Richard Westbrook, and we were talking to Richard Westbrook a little bit earlier. Very disappointed with the new race engine they fitted to this car. It apparently is flatter than a flat thing on flat day. So it's got no torque whatsoever. They've been consistently backing off wing on the car and trying to give away grip in the hope that it might drag itself off a corner. But unfortunately, it seems to be an awful lot less impressive than the race the engine they had in for qualifying. Unfortunately, occasionally that's the way it goes. I'm joined in the booth now by Chris Parsons and Neville Hay. So first of all, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Martin.
Oh, good evening, Martin. Very nicely done. Well done together. Romain Belleville steps out of the Celine, which, if we catch up on our GT1 positions, is currently I'm lost. First in GT1. They're scattered so liberally down page 2 of the timing screen. Yes, I can see it now. There's not a burly bloke in the way. One green light signifies he is in first position, and there'll be 2 red lights on the side of this car, because this is not the Celine. This is now our second place car, the Oreca Peugeot of Nicolas Lapierre. And after Peugeot started so dominantly with cars running 1, 2, 3 and 4, they have lost car number 3 courtesy of a rare suspension failure, and car number 1 with a serious delay due to some electrical gremlin. Bless you, Jeremy Shaw, in the background. So, gentlemen, what looked like being a very long and painful 23 and a half hours waiting for Peugeot's axe to fall and to have a 1, 2, 3, 4 finish suddenly seems to have turned into a much more edifying prospect.
Yes, the whole thing seems really very open. Although the weather, which was the one factor that we thought would be the limiting factor here, looks fairly set now for the rest of the race. Although it is quite cold outside and the wind is blowing from the north, which means that it could blow the rain back. But I believe for the next 2 hours at least things are set, although towards dawn there might be some rain, which would upset things again.
That's the sort of prognostication that over the last couple of days we have heard, accompanied by claps of thunder. There will be no more rain for the rest of the evening. Quick, let's hide from the lightning.
Nothing they say convinces me about the weather here. All the years I've been coming to Le Mans, and I've been told, oh, it's going to be scalding hot, and it rains. Oh, it's going to rain, and it's hot. It is a little bit of a lottery, but they do say, you know, that's an old story about Dame Doolittle, the fat lady sings, and I've got a feeling that this race, it had a sting at the start, and I think it might have a sting in the tail somewhere along the line. I don't know why I think that, but I've had this feeling all the way along the line.
Well, there's always lots of twists and turns, and there's certainly been quite a few so far, and not just in the front-running LMP1 category either. Here's our erstwhile GT1 leader, for instance, the Maytech Ford, which looked pretty rock solid in the GT1 class. Of course, involved in the accident that brought out the safety car. That is currently 3rd in class, but has been on pit road for a very long while. has completed 129 laps to the leader's 138. So that's a very long way to try and catch up on pace. That ain't going to happen even in 13 hours and 50 minutes.
No.
They're going to have to wait for something else to break on somebody else's car. And as you can see, still trying to chop bits out of inner wheel arch liners to get the bodywork to go back on. And at 200 and odd miles an hour, actually you do quite need it to fit. That's rather important.
You don't need your bodywork flying off at those sort of speeds.
You don't miss it. In the pits, sorry, I didn't mean to make that quite so camp. In the pits is the WR, which is climbing slowly up the order now, knocking on the door of the top 30. 31st place for Stefan Cellini as he jumps out and gurns the camera. And not an auspiciously quick car, but it seems much against the run of form with Cellini's. We're sort of echoing the Japanese Lamborghini program here. Seems to be keeping itself pretty much out of harm's way, and that is rule number one at Le Mans. Stay out of the pits because you go a lot quicker when you're going on the track.
Talking of that, Martin, the car that's really surprised me today is the HPD, the Straka car of Danny Watts, which really has had a very clean run. Everyone thought that the Franchitti car would be the leader of that class, the Franchitti Brabham car, but no, the Danny Watts Straka car has had a very clean run and doing very well. Now, what, 3 laps?
Yeah, they're two cars that really are the class of their respective fields. The Straka team have been very much the class of the LMS this year in the LMP2, and the Highcroft team, which Marino Franchitti has joined for the long distance races as a driver rather than just as a member of the crew. That's been very much the LMP2 class leader in the American Le Mans series. So it is sort of the clash of the two titans, and the Acura chassis is definitely a new generation of LMP2 car. It seems to be just a step ahead of the Lola chassis. In third place, in fact, is Olivier Pla. In the fourth place is Olivier Pla in the Ginetta Zytek, the number 40 Keeper ASM car. But the Pescarolo Judd of Guillaume Moreau, currently the young French driver car in the Oak Racing organisation, Mathieu Lahaye joining him, and Jean Charus, not that French, the Czech, but mainly young French drivers. That is currently lying third in class, but it is a battle basically between the Acuras to see who blinks. The GT1 Ford leaves the pit lane as John Cleland settles down in his armchair with a large glass of Armagnac. Do you want to hit him, Neville, or shall I?
Well, I think basically the least he could have done was give us a bottle.
Cleland gives someone a bottle.
Yes, I know.
That's very unlikely.
Very unlikely.
In is the 11th place Lola Aston Martin. This is a double-8 car. Vanina X is at the wheel at the moment, and this is one of the 3 Lola Aston Martins, of course. Pierre Rag, Vanina X and Frank Mayer driving this car. They're in 11th. The other 2 cars, the Gulf-coloured cars of the Aston Martin racing team, 007, 009, they are 7th and 8th. Adrian Fernandez and Sam Hancock, respectively, at the helm of those cars. We're going to take a quick commercial break and be back in just a second with more live coverage here from Le Mans. Welcome back live to Le Mans. You could only be in one place, couldn't you? Lights on, it's night, and there's the Dunlop Bridge. World's greatest endurance motor race continues. Looking here at our LMP2 class leader, rather. In fact, that's the Keeper ASM car that lies in 4th place in the car, which is the class led by the number 42 Straka Racing HPD engined Acura chassis. Acura in 2nd place as well with the HPD engine in number 26 Highcroft car. That's the green and black machine. 3rd place in the class, as we said, Lola Judd of Guillaume Moreau. And gentlemen, you can see the mechanics now starting to feel the pace of having been up at probably 6-ish this morning to get into the track, ready for 9 o'clock morning warm-up. the 24 hours of Le Mans, of course, is about a 40-hour shift, really, isn't it?
It's the catnap club.
And walking through the paddock on my way up to the tower, my God, there are some very, very tired faces already.
Tired and emotional, or just tired?
No, just tired in the paddock. They're emotional outside.
Yeah, there's
the paddock.
emotions outside running fairly high. The odd thing about this race is that there isn't anything like it anywhere. Le Mans at night, as I was saying earlier on, an hour or so ago, it is just special. But the thing that I find even more daunting is that now there's quite a lot of this circuit that is quite well lit, not just the pit area. And then you go out here and onto the Mulsanne and what have you, and it is very, very dark. Don't let those pictures fool you. It's a lot darker than that if you're sitting in the car driving it down here at a couple of 100 miles an hour, I'll tell you.
Yes, a couple of hours ago, I tried to get down to Arnage at the other end of the circuit, and it's absolutely impossible. There are so many cars, buses, people walking, bikes, motorbikes, everything. There are just thousands and thousands of people here, and
the night is the great thing here. I mean, I can remember as a youth sort of coming here, and also taking my boys here as well, and going out on the Mulsanne, you know, it was just the most unbelievable feeling.
You could move around a lot easier in those days.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's why there are so many thousands of people jamming the roads with their cars and their buses and their bicycles and scooters and everything, trying to get out there, because it is the one race in Europe, really, that has anything like this. I mean, we'd argue that there's nowhere quite like this in the world. Daytona obviously has a lot more night in it. It's 24 hours. Sebring goes into the dust, but Le Mans really is unique in that aspect. It doesn't have the longest night, but it is a dark night, and particularly out there in the forest. We're talking the Mulsanne Straight, we're talking Arnage and Indianapolis, where we're racing up towards now at really very high speeds. The Peugeot right up behind the Highcroft Acura and making it look like it's standing still as they rush up towards Indianapolis, over the kink where the Mercedes flew all those years ago with Peter Dunbreck on board, and at 220 miles an hour, stabbing the brakes, turning Indianapolis down here into the second part of Indianapolis, probably doing little over 100 kilometers an hour. And then one of the more difficult corners, even though it's the slowest, because you always feel that the squirt up to Arnage, you need to carry a bit more speed, but the braking is so important there, you can just skate off the track within a heartbeat. And then heading down again on public roads, you can see the dotted lines in the middle. Now the curbstones at the side, the mile markers and the trees have all been moved back a little bit. But to a Bentley boy from the 1920s, to a Jaguar driver from the 1950s, to Steve McQueen in the 1970s, that view, Neville, has remained pretty much unchanged.
Yeah, totally recognisable. Funny enough, I went out on Friday night for a meal, and I went down towards White House, and I was explaining to the guy who was with me, do you realise that this is where the circuit used to be? You can still see the safety bank as such, and you see where White House is. And I said, this is where in 1927 the Bentley team all involved in this. And then 10 years later, there was another accident there which sadly cost the life of a South African driver, Pat Fairfield, and that was the scene of very, very many of the difficulties that arose over the years. They changed it, and of course they changed with the Ford chicane. It became an awful lot safer in this particular part of the circuit.
Same time up there, I was here when John Wolfe was killed in the
917.
In the first of the 917s, and after that, and the width of the circuit there is so narrow. And as you say, there are ditches either side and banks and houses. It's quite incredible. No safety factors whatsoever.
Now, I mean, if you look now at these cars, yes, we know that cornering forces and everything are that much greater. But when you think of the thousands and thousands of miles that drivers have put onto these circuits with the Jaguar team, with the Aston Martin team, and some of the things that sort of amused me is that, you know, when we had Archie Hamilton at today in the Porsche race, in that C-Type Jaguar, which the Hamilton family still own, that they won the race with, is the orange. Because Gunga always had oranges in the car. And there is one of the oranges in that car. It's still in the car to this day.
if any of you have not read the Duncan Hamilton book, Touchwood, you really ought to. It's one of the funniest books about motor racing. Some of his exploits were just tremendous.
He did have some very amusing times, I think is the nice way of putting it.
Yes. Another book that I've just read, which is well worth reading, is called Go Like Hell, which is the story of the Ford-Ferrari battles in the 60s and 70s. And we see the GT40s, or the Fords here today, the Ford GTs, but it was the GT40s and the Ferraris in those days. And it's an excellent book building up about the battle between the two companies.
Well, it really came about, of course, because at the time, Ferrari was undoubtedly very successful in Grand Prix cars and in sports cars and everything else as well. And for a reason best known to himself, Henry Ford decided he wanted to buy it. And it didn't happen. And I think there was a little bit of spite and, well, if you can do it, I can do it, came into it. And the Ford Motor Company, everything went quiet for a little while. And then Eric Broadley, that self-same Eric Broadley who headed up Lola and the cars, we see Lola cars out here today, designed a car which was actually at Le Mans in 1963. There were two of them here. And these cars made a huge impression upon Ford. And so basically what happened is they bought the design. And at this point in time, this I thought was the amazing thing. We watched actually two very, very interesting little battles going on there. And just break away from that for a moment too.
That's the recovering Audi of Christophe Boucher, one of the two Colles cars. Now that was well up into the top 10 and is now slumped down into 14th place, just coming out of the pits. And in the pits at the moment is our race leader. So Stefan Sarrazin receiving service, stays in. Sarrazin, of course, very disappointed, disgruntled to lose a chance to claim a fourth consecutive pole, but he started from pole 3 times for Peugeot and has yet to win a race. Didn't start from pole this year, but is leading the race. So I guess perhaps you'd give up those Thursday and Friday headlines if you got the Monday morning headlines and the chance to take that trophy home with you. Take a quick commercial break here and we'll be back live from Le Mans in just a second. Stay with us. Welcome back live again, joining Stefan Sarrazin in his Peugeot, fresh from the pits, on board just a moment or two ago, working his way on cold-ish tyres. They'll be straight out of the tyre oven, but not as hot as they would have been at the end of the lap as he works his way through traffic, through the S's, catching up to the Racing Box Porsche. The BMS Scuderia Italia Porsche, rather, through the S's. And the witching hours are upon us, boys and girls. Neville Hay, Chris Parsons and Martin Haven here as we head into the night. Wherever you are across Europe, it's now officially starting to be Sunday. And wherever else you are across the world, it may be heading towards Monday or getting into Sunday morning. But whatever, the focus of an awful lot of attention, Formula One fans and elsewhere, is on this race at Le Mans, because Neville, it has still got an enormous cachet about it. Over the years, manufacturers have come and gone, different eras of cars have come and gone, but for all, and perhaps because partly of all its unique Frenchness, with all that entails, positive and negative, Le Mans is still one of the world's great challenges.
Oh, tremendous challenge, you know. I mean, we welcome insomniacs here at Le Mans. And I said, I don't think this battle is over. We were talking about the GT40s, and it's been gorgeous to see these cars. I'm just so sad that they haven't given a really good account of themselves, but perhaps they'll come back another year. You know, when the GT40 first appeared, we were talking about when the Lola was bought by Ford, they had a whole lot of people developing it. They had Phil Hill, they had the other great Richie Ginther driving it. Everybody had a go at it. And the one thing they couldn't get right, actually, was the aerodynamics. That was the thing that actually caused them to come here on the practice days, the test days, and write the cars off. And when they came to the first event, and it was just purely sort of after everybody had bitten at it, the old lag, one of the team, who sort of was a great friend of Wyre's. Wyre liked him because he could say, right, well, look, get in it and drive it. And he drove it as fast as it would go and didn't actually ask any questions. And the old lag said, I think it's the aerodynamics. And do you know what? He was right. They put a spoiler on the back of the handle there afterwards.
Well, of course, Ford had those problems with the GT.
That's number one.
Yes, that's Anthony Davidson, unfortunately. Car that led the race until it had an electrical problem, and that is at the S's. He's gone off down in S de la Chapelle. Of course, this modern version of the S's, very much different from the old S's, which were snaking down through high wall banks in the forest. This has been introduced for the Motorcycle Grand Prix, predominantly in single-seater racing. And he gets pushed out of the gravel trap there. He's going to find himself back towards a bit of terra more firma. And that would have cost him maybe 30 seconds to a minute.
Yeah,
we'll take a look at the lap time next time round. Last lap was a 3-minute 21.6. And the fast lap by the leader was a fastest lap we've had so far has been a 3-minute 21. So he's right down there on the outright fastest pace. And it's as usually is the case, a mix-up in traffic. And putting himself down the inside, as I wasn't quite sure what it was actually. I was looking at the timing screen when the replay started. Somebody anyway pinched an inch or two. Also a spin.
It looks as if they got together. Yeah,
it was one of the Alfa Ventura Corvettes, I believe. Now there is one of them going strongly. In second place, Xavier Masson in the 73 car. So we'll take a look at his next lap time. His last lap time was a 4-minute flat. If we remember in 4 minutes, we'll have a look back. And Davidson did a 3:21. Now they've come together and both gyrated. Hopefully no major damage done, but in any situation like that, particularly when you're doing the sort of speeds they are now, as we ride on board with him into the first chicane, where again he's trying to find catch-up room now inside what looks like the 008 Signature Plus team, Lola Aston Martin. Whenever you have contact, particularly with the speeds they're doing here, Nev, you want to be really sure that the car is still in one piece, but you haven't got time to check. You've just got to get on with it flat out again. Yeah,
you really feel probably that the desire to come in and let them have a look at it from the outside, even if it's very briefly, is there, but it's a chance you can't really take if you can't avoid it. You know, you want to carry on.
And he took a lot of gravel on as well. You can see it flying around, so you'll see it again.
Well, this is a replay, and you can actually see when it gives a sudden jerk that what's happened. I think possibly the Corvette driver didn't see him.
Yeah, well, he may well have been blinded by the headlights as he came in, but it's very hard to tell. And the simple rule in motorsport is the faster car must make the clean pass, and you expect the other driver to stay on the racing line, so you've got at least some idea of predicting where he's going to go.
Well, it was the late Dennis Jenkinson that said the piece of advice that he gave to all drivers was, look, stick to your line. He wants to come by you, let him find his way, but don't do anything to help him, because you'll probably make it worse. You'll hinder him.
Well, we saw that early in the race where Andy Prio tried to give a little bit more room to Alan McNish in the number 7 Audi as they got into the Porsche curves rather, and unfortunately McNish was already committed to the outside. I can remember a 1,000-kilometre race in Brands Hatch where Jochen Mass was taken off at enormous speed by a car doing exactly that in clearways, moving offline. But Mass was committed to go around the outside, and he had a huge rant about it, and rightly so, because if you don't stay on the racing line, there is no chance the driver following you can predict where you're going. If you stay on the racing line, as Davidson comes by the pits and eschews a chance to come in, it obviously feels okay. If you don't stay on the racing line, then all bets are off. There's no idea where you're going next. So give the guy a fighting chance. He's good. He'll find a way past.
That was the Pink Panther, by the way, that
it was.
Fell over.
Yes, I wasn't going to bore everybody with Roy Baker Racing Tiger stories, but since you brought it out, we won't bowl them any further. Do you remember who was driving? I don't.
Yes, but I won't criticise him.
Well, tell us when we're off air with you, and then we can basically pretend we knew all the time.
Absolutely.
Now here is the driver change getting ready to happen for the 73 Corvette. That's Julien Jus, last year racing racing in the FIA Formula 2 Championship, so obviously coming from a single-seater background, as does his younger brother, or as his younger brother is currently in. Xavier Masson, also an ex-single-seater driver, and their slightly more elderly third driver, Patrice Goulart, who's been a long-time supporter of GT racing. He's 44 compared to 24 of Jus, who is the younger member of the team, youngest member of the team, and he's getting ready to take on that 73 car. And what did we say? 4 minutes 7.3. Oh, and we've got another car off, car number 63 in the gravel traps. That's the Corvette of Jan Magnussen, Johnny O'Connell, Antonio Garcia, our GT2 class second place car, and post 96, which is 9 kilometers into the lap. Oh, that's the fast, no, that's the slow left-hander at Indianapolis.
I was trying to work out where it was, yeah.
My map tells me.
Yeah. Sadly, if I remember rightly, Mr. Magnussen's started racing, hasn't he?
Oh yes, he has, Kevin.
It was quite worrying, that, you know.
And very well, yes. Yeah. Kevin seems to be equally adept in throwing a single-seat around as the old, well, it's not fair to call Jan Magnussen old man yet, even though he is a father. 36, no, I don't think that qualifies as old.
No,
so no, young Kevin Magnussen, still 16, very, very capable indeed, it seems.
Very short Grand Prix career for Jan Magnussen. I think basically the atmosphere that surrounds Grand Prix racing didn't suit him very well. He looked to be having the right place, the right time, but it all fell over for him, didn't it, Martin?
Yes, I think he was quick enough. I just think it just did his head in, and he was either too young for it or just actually wasn't the kind of guy that will deal with it. However, he has continued to carve himself a very successful racing career in sports cars, and a real linchpin now in this Corvette program. However, they were running first and second, the two Corvettes. They were about 2 minutes apart. In fact, it's Johnny O'Connell in the car, in the gravel, still in the gravel, we believe, and up to third place now in the GT2 class has come the lead Porsche. This is the 77 Felbermeyer Porsche, the blue car driven by Mark Lieb and Wolf Hensler and Richard Leitz. So no even vague pretense of having a Felbermeyer or Gerald and Christian Reed that Proton used to run aboard the car. Felbermeyers are in the other car. The three factory drivers are in the 77 car. That's now up to third place. Car 63 has rejoined, and maybe now at 1:30. Let's have a quick scoot down the order. If you want to find what the times and positions are yourself, and particularly if we haven't referred to your favourite car for some while, either A, because we've forgotten to, or B, because it's retired, you can go to lemans.org on your laptop or your computer and have a look at their timing and scoring. That'll tell you everything. So our overall leader is Stefan Zarazan from Nicolas Lapierre, Peugeot's first and second. Audi, Timo Bernhardt and Marcel Fassler and Tom Christiansen, they are third, fourth and fifth. Peugeot, Anthony Davidson, sixth after his recent excursion. The two Lola Astons, as was. Adrian Fernandez still driving ahead of Sam Hancock, 007 and 009, they're seventh and eighth. Rounding out the top 10, Christian Albers in the older Colles Audi, the R10 TDI. He's in ninth, and Sayel Iari in car number 6, Ugo Schonag's Orica prototype, the open car rather than the Peugeot closed car. That lies in 10th place. And we'll take a quick commercial break and round up the rest of the classes on the other side of this word. Welcome back live to Le Mans. As you see, the second car in the GT2 class, GT1 class even, having a routine pit stop. This is the Alphon Aventure Corvette car number 73, which was driven earlier by Xavier Masson when it had an unintentional collision. I think it was that car with the number 1 Peugeot. Now Julien Jus has taken it over. Joined Luc Alphon's team earlier this year at the beginning of the Le Mans Series program, and turning into quite an entertaining young sports car peddler as well. We've covered the overall top 10 just a minute or two ago, and that all includes the LMP1 cars. This is the number 1 machine of Anthony Davidson, so he was obviously pretty much due a stop when he had his incident a couple of laps ago. Didn't bother coming in because he knew he was coming in anyway. Torches, as you would expect, examining everything. Car looks okay. Anthony staying in and just receiving fuel. Tyres there on the far side of the car as we look at it now, just in case. And that is the sign of the impact there below the P1 label with what I'm sure was that 73 Corvette in the GT2 class. So our leader goes out. There is Anthony Davidson sharing with Mark Genet and Alexander Wurz. Average height of the team is about 5'8".
Except for Wurz.
Well, only because Alexander Wurz is about 6'3".
Yeah.
And Davidson's about 5'0", and Mark Genet is about average racing driver height as opposed to petite racing driver height, which Davidson is. And how Davidson gets in off the back of Wurz without having a massive seat insert, Lord only knows. But
amazing.
He's out and back up to speed, and again, as you have to in this race, showing ultimate commitment right from the moment he gets out of the pit lane and right back up to speed.
I feel rather sad, actually, that his Formula One career has not taken off again in any way, because if you looked at his testing times when he was with Honda, he was very, very much on the pace, and I think that the newer teams, the 3 new teams, made a serious error in not getting him because he is such a good sorter of cars. There's a big difference, actually, that's becoming more and more prevalent now in Formula One and in sports cars as well, where everything is done with the computer, and you put it all in, and that's fine, and that's what it says. And then the driver says, no, it doesn't actually do that.
Well, the problem is if you've got a new car with new designers and new engineers and a whole new program, and you put in a driver who doesn't know what a good Formula One car feels like, you're never going to get the feedback that tells you when the Formula One car is good.
Exactly.
It's just going to be whatever it is, and he's just going to drive it as quickly as he can. If you then rent somebody who does know what good feels like, you end up getting guided in the correct direction. We see that time and time again in single-seater championships, where midfield at best teams hire a decent driver, and then he tells them when they're in the sweet spot, and suddenly they end up winning races and being right up the sharp end of the grid at elevated levels that they would never otherwise have attained. And yeah, it is a shame for Anthony that he hasn't been picked up long before now, and unfortunately a lot of the teams have missed out.
Yeah, but is that not sports car game to have got someone like Anthony Davidson?
I think to have him with a team like Peugeot, yes.
Absolutely.
It is sports cars gain, and I think that that probably is going to mean that, for want of a better word, if you look at the fact that Alan McNeish is life's begun for him this year, you know. Well, Anthony's about 9 years younger, so life could just about begin to be beginning for him, and he could actually find himself a very nice safe berth in international sports car racing, World Championship sports car racing, and I think that would be a good thing for him now, because he deserves it.
Yeah, and actually Anthony, comparing him to Alan McNeish, I think is a probably decent comparison, because Alan certainly used success in sports cars to regenerate a career in single seat, or a career that in single seaters had sort of ground to a fairly disappointing halt for him. He picked up a good ride in sports cars, ended up being a Porsche factory driver, ended up winning Le Mans, and then by dint of being one of the best sports car drivers in the business, ended up being attracted by, or Toyota ended up being attracted to him and giving him a run in their Formula One car. Okay, didn't end up with him then conquering the dizzying heights of Formula One, but there's an awful lot of drivers that have been into Formula One and come out the other end and haven't got anything on their CV even remotely as interesting as one Le Mans win, never mind a series of Le Mans wins. So yeah, Alan didn't end up being the Formula One world champion, but he's done something that not very many people get to do either, which is become a multiple Le Mans winner.
In relation to what you were saying, and being a member of a team, a Formula One team, and bringing in a driver who knows what does work and what doesn't work, one of the big problems, of course, with the Toyota Formula One team was they never actually made the car work as well as it should have done. And I sometimes doubt whether they had anybody who was able to really sort it.
Oh, because the car was designed by committee from Japan.
Yes, one of the big problems that I think everyone is well aware of, that some, I don't say all, but some of the Japanese tended to make, and this also was, they were the Honda team at one time, all the decisions in Japan by committee. And it took 10 days or a fortnight to actually get someone to say yes. As opposed to in Formula One, it ought to take somewhere around about 10 seconds to say, yes, we will, or no, we won't.
That's where Honda were clever in bringing in Ross Brawn.
It was indeed. Yeah.
Who could take the whole thing forward.
And it could have worked and would have worked for them had they had the patience to stay with it. But they somehow or other, I think, threw all their toys out of the pram. And there you go.
Third place car on pit road, Timo Bernhardt in the number 9 Audi. 3 red lights down the side denotes that it's in third place in its class. The red denotes that it is in the P1 class, so the overall fastest running cars. And he hands his car over. So that car is lying 2 laps off the lead, 1 lap behind the second place Peugeot, which is not the sort of gap that you are necessarily going to find on pace alone, particularly if you're an Audi which is slower than the Peugeots. But with 13 hours still to go, plenty of time for people to bump into, trip over, or otherwise have problems with things not necessarily of their own making.
Got a question for you two.
Go ahead.
You're both sage chaps, they've been around this long. How in God in heaven did our friends at Audi come to Le Mans with a car 2 years running this year which wasn't competitive? How did it happen? I can't believe that the Germans would do it.
Well, because Peugeot have accelerated their program and pushed their program so far forward in the way that Audi did over the years to defeat the current front runners when they arrived, and they have overtaken Audi. And it's as simple as that.
Martin, I really don't think that Audi is the car that it should be.
No.
Well, it is exactly the car they designed. They have got what they wanted, according to the drivers.
Yeah, but it is
turning the speed that they wanted it to turn in the simulations. What's happened is Peugeot, particularly in the engine department, has taken a big step forward that nobody expected, and certainly Audi didn't expect.
So you think it's the engine department that has made, to some degree, the difference?
Well, the chassis is the same as last year and the year before and the year before and the year before. The aerodynamics are barely changed, and yet it's going a lot faster.
Yeah, well, I think that puts us all in our place. You know, I never thought of it quite that way.
It's pretty straightforward. Peugeot introduced a new engine this year, a much quicker new engine this year, and Audi were caught napping.
They really were caught napping, because it was quite amazing. I mean, when we first came here on Wednesday, and I came up here and I just looked at those first few laps. I stood in the back of the box there and said in a loud voice, Mark said, psh. I said, well, that's it, isn't it? You know, I'm sad to say that I was proved right.
Unless something happens. But Neville, going back to what you've just been talking about, designed by committee, are you not saying that about Audi? The thing was designed by committee, not by, you know.
Well, no car is now designed by one single person.
No.
Apart from anything, you have an engine department and a chassis department and an aerodynamic department, because there are too many disciplines for Colin Chapman to sit down and draw it up on a piece of paper in a week like he used to do in the good old days. So everything is designed by a committee. That doesn't make it inefficient. It makes it efficient when people are concentrating on their specialist areas. But what has happened here is Peugeot have taken a step ahead that Audi have not matched. It's as simple as that. It happens.
The other strange thing, of course, while we're talking about design and design of racing cars, sports racing cars and what have you, is that there was one man who stands out a head and shoulders above everybody else who has designed Grand Prix cars in the last 20 years. And that's Adrian Newey. Silence.
Yes.
But it is. You think about it. Think back to the days of Williams, days of McLaren, the current days. He really has had a grip that is quite amazing over the last 20 years.
I would venture that Ross Brawn has been in charge of more cars that have won more championships.
Ah, yes. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that from the pure design standpoint.
Design doesn't always do it, as every race is proving. And again, looking here at the Judd-powered car of Paul Drayson and his team, this car has been single-handedly, I think, about the most troublesome thing in the pit road. It has been in and out with a catalogue of woes that I don't think the team could possibly have envisaged in their worst nightmares. The car has generally been pretty reliable so far this season, but clearly was saving up an awful lot of spite for the race. What they're doing, I don't know what they're doing here now. Looks like they're recompressing an air system of some kind, unless they're filling up a drink system. That took an awful long time. It has been a catalogue of errors for that car. It just refuses to stay on the track, despite which Paul Jason, Johnny Cochran and Emanuele Pia are actually turning some fairly quick laps when it's out on the track. But the number of in fact, let's see how many. It's now made 14 pit stops. The next most is the WR with 13, and in the LMP1 class, oh, in fact, Neil Yarney's number 12 Rebellion Lola has made 14 stops as well. But it's the Drayson car, they've had a lot of problems with it, and every time it comes in, they have to fix an extra something, which is why it's nowhere near the top 10, and in fact, not even anywhere near the top 20. It's 33rd place. Meanwhile, second place car number 4 comes in, and Nicolas Lapierre bails out at the end of his triple stint in that car. That is its 14th pit stop, same as the Drayson car. It has now completed 175 laps, the Drayson car 143 laps, and that tells its own story. Puncture there on the AF Corsa Ferrari. Now, we may well be in for a bit of a rash of GT pit stops, or either that or this may be out of sequence. If he's lucky, it will have come when he was planning to come into the pits anyway. We did see that Giancarlo Fisichella was helmeted up anyway, so I'm suspecting, despite the grim look on John Alesi's face, Fisichella was ready. I think perhaps Alesi was due to come in now anyway. 5th in the GT2 class. Looking rather accusingly at the tyres there, but generally speaking, tyres don't puncture all on themselves. They normally have something go into them, so can't normally blame the rubber for everything. GT2 still being led by the number 64 Corvette of Olivier Beretta at the moment. 63 Corvette still in second place, even after it was beached in the gravel. Antonio Garcia took that car over. That's the GT2 lead battle. Alesi being debriefed quickly by the team. Mark Lieb 3rd in the GT2 class. 4th is Raymond Narak. They're both in Porsche. 77 is the first of the Felbermeyer Proton cars. 76 Raymond Narak in the IMSA Matmut performance car. In 5th in the GT2 class is Horst Farnbacher, senior or junior, I'm not sure, scoring doesn't tell us. In their 89 car, the Hankook Ferrari, Dominic Farnbacher, that he shares with Alan Simonson and Lee Keane. And finally, 6th in the class is the BMW, the 78 car, the white BMW. Augusto Farfus currently at the wheel of the car. He shares with Jörg Müller and Uwe Altsem. And that's starting to shake off its problems and make some progress up the order now, up in the 6th place, ahead of Richard Westbrook in the 97 BMS Scuderia Italia Porsche. We'll be back with more from Le Mans in just a second. Welcome back live to Le Mans, where the number 12 Rebellion Lola Coupe is currently in the garage, having just been pulled back in. Screen cleaning going on. Neil Yarney at the wheel, and just out of the pits and straight into the barriers, Tim Greaves plants the Ginetta very firmly. That's the Brooke Laddie car. Yeah. He has just this minute left the pit lane. No, he is just this minute leaving the pit lane. So that was... Anyone? Hands up?
Well, I think he did it actually on his way in, because I picked up the car when it came into the pits and I thought he just had a spin. Actually, that was the whole thing. That's a pre-record of what happened beforehand. And I've just heard that in the air, so I was right.
So that's him recovering out of the pits.
Yes.
Right,
He's been into the pit. They put it all right again. Out you go.
Back into real time.
Yeah. Don't find the dreadless.
Dear Lord. Don't do it again.
Do you remember in the 1970s when they started showing replays off tape, they had a big flashing R on them? Hello, anyone? If you're showing a replay, put replay up on the screen, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
Fool anybody, especially an idiot like me.
Especially at this time of night.
Now then, while we're looking at the number 72 Alfa Adventure Corvette on pit lane, that's Jerome Policon, of course. Alternator going in, so that's not got no electrics. In also comes Marcel Fassler's Audi. He will hand over to Benoit Trulier's turn again. Oh, I can't remember which order they're in at the moment. We'll have to wait.
I think it is, isn't it?
Andre Lotterer.
Andre Lotterer, no. Shown as Japanese, of course. Andre Lotterer, the well-known Japanese driver from Switzerland. How so, indeed? Well, they mostly earn their living in Japan. Actually, about half the Audi team do, the younger guys, but Andre Lotterer takes it over then. And they are currently lying third overall with Romain Dumas in the other Audi, the number 9 car, the other non-delayed Audi, in fourth position. Away he goes. It is just like metronomic work in the pit lane, isn't it? You know, and they'll still be doing that at 2 to 3 if necessary tomorrow afternoon. In, do it, done, go, quick.
So well drilled, the whole thing, isn't it? It's just quite a remarkable, it's second nature.
That's Reinhold Jost for you. You know, it's his team, and he's always run a team along those lines, and he's been a major force at Le Mans for many, many years.
As a driver and as a team and as a driver, he was a formidable driver, wasn't he?
Oh yes.
I mean, he was one of those drivers. I think over a long career doing this job, you've seen them and I've seen them. Some of them really, really work at it. They are the fact that they win races because they work at it.
Oh, and
he is a workaholic.
And Reinhold, yes, and a very intelligent.
Yeah, highly intelligent. Those eyes, they're piercing eyes, and you know when you look at him, the determination to succeed is just wow.
When he could actually beat the factory Porsche team in a private car, that takes some doing.
Name from the past, I know we've been talking about it and joking about it over the weekend. Tom Walkinshaw was exactly the same. That was just that absolute determination that was going to overcome whatever the situation was. Tom was determined he was going to beat it.
Well, we may have the situation here this weekend with the Oreca team running the Peugeot, which they're doing so efficiently at the moment.
I can't come to a nicer bloke than Hughes Kennett. I mean, he's a lovely man and very much a father figure for anybody who drives for him, sort of arm around them, a lot of support and all this sort of thing. But I think if you cross him, it can be quite difficult.
GT2 leader on pit lane. I think we'll leave that slanderous line of pursuit a little further down the line. Olivier Barreto was the man at the helm of the 64 Corvette. Corvette still first and second in the GT2 class. Incidentally, we were enjoying very much early on the battle between this car number 64, and the Risi Competizione car number 82, driven by Jamie Malo, Jimmy Bruni and Pierre Caffa. That will continue no longer. In fact, it hasn't been going for some while, as Risi have run into a string of problems, predominantly gearbox related, and in the end, terminal. Risi are no more, at least that red car is no more. The one that's had a slightly harder time from the drivers, in terms of being hit off things rather than just being flailed around the track, the 83 Risi Competizione car, the Crane Racing green one, that I believe is still going. And for J-Lock fanciers, just ponder that phrase for a moment or two, it's still in the pits. Sushi Yogo nominally at the wheel of the Japanese Lamborghini Owners Club Lamborghini Gallardo Murcielago, and that is slipping down the order, about to go into the netherworld. That is page 3 of the timing screen, which we can't read. So once it drops off past 42nd, we will cease to score, or indeed probably even notice the J-Lock Lamborghini, I'm afraid. So Lamborghini fans, you might want to get your own timing monitors on your computer screens. In 2 is the car that is fourth in the GT2 class now, Raymond Narak, the man who is Matmut. He is at the wheel of the car that he shares traditionally, of course, with Patrick Pilet, and they've had a lot of success at Le Mans in this car, and young American Pat Long joins them and considerably adds to the pace of their driver lineup. He's a very quick factory Porsche driver, and at least the match of any of the other guys in the other Porsche cars as well. And of course, the whole point of spreading the Porsche talent around as many teams as you possibly can is to try and make sure that Corvette and Ferrari and BMW and Aston Martin don't get to win Le Mans, and Porsche do. But at the moment, they are chasing, because Corvette's new GT2 program appears to be about as convincingly efficient as their old GT1 program was.
Yeah, when you get on the Porsche books as a Porsche driver, you know, a lot of people sort of say, I want to be a racing driver. I'll tell you what, you get on the Porsche books, like one or two of the names you mentioned, Pat Long among them, you're made, aren't you, really? Provided you're a good boy, you're made.
Well, you don't get in unless you are an extremely good boy. Yeah. I remember talking to Lucas Luhr years ago. He went to one of these big test days they have, and he was called back into the pits after 4 laps and told to get out. And he said, but you said I could have 10 laps. No, get out. And he was pulled out of the car because they said he was going recklessly fast. And then he was signed because he was going not recklessly fast, but incredibly controlled and fast. There is our field rundown. P2 class in blue, being led by the HPD of Danny Watts, with Marino Franchitti giving chase. Looks like those two have been in there for just about ever. In the GT2 class, the orangey yellow cars, yellow on our screens, orange on yours. It is Corvettes to the fore, and in GT1, the green cars. Gabriel Gardel, the leader, is on the pit road with the Celine coming down towards us as we speak. He is 2 laps ahead of the 73 Corvette of Julien Jousse. There he is, even as we speak. And in 3rd place, Jonathan Hershey, still rolling in that Ford, which is now nearly 10 laps off the lead of the class, is 9 laps off the lead of the class. Thomas Enger 4th in the young driver Aston Martin. The DBR9 is in 5th class in fifth place position in GT1. Trent Policon in the Corvette in 6th place in GT1. That is the 2nd Alfa Aventura car. So there you see the Celine in its last race here at Le Mans. It will run out of homologation for Le Mans racing at the end of the year, and GT1 will pretty much, it would appear, cease to exist in at least its current form next year. Not sure that Le Mans are particularly over worried about taking on the new GT1 regulations. They've got so many cars in GT2, and including all the major manufacturers, that they might as well just expand GT2 and have more major manufacturers or more cars from major manufacturers, because from the side of the track, can you tell the difference between the Alphon Corvettes and the factory Corvettes? No, not really.
And the GT2, there are just so many manufacturers. It's looking fantastic. All right, BMW don't seem to have had a very good Le Mans this year, but
they will. It'll be all right.
They'll come back.
Yeah. Yeah, BMW don't sort of roll over and say, oh dear, they'll get on with it.
Well, you struggle to remember now, but of course when Audi came here, they fell flat on their face in the first year, with the original cars open and closed, and didn't really cover themselves in glory. But you've got to learn, just like everybody else coming here. You've got to pay your dues. You have to learn how to work the car into the racetrack, and you have to learn how to deal with the traffic and all the other problems that life throws at you. And boy, did they learn. Behind the Porsche there, let's take a little look at the 75 cars. We've barely talked about that Pro Speed car. It is an all-gentleman driver lineup. Paul van Splunter and Nick Homerson and Louis Machils. But behind them has come in the Oak Racing Pescarolo. This is the young drivers Oak Racing Pescarolo. This is 3rd in our LMP2 category, going very strongly indeed. And of course, with Henri not able to run his own team this year for various reasons, which largely involved him being stitched up by a potential backer, the Pescarolo name being represented very much by the Oak Racing team here, and the car's designer Richard de Villa here overseeing progress. Mathieu Lahaye, Guillaume Moreau and Jean Charus doing a really solid job with that car, bearing in mind its relative vintage compared to the much more up-to-date Acura and particularly HPD package. That Pescarolo Judd is giving a significantly better showing of itself than last year's Oak Racing Pescarolo Mazdas. Same chassis, but with a very different engine. This time they've got one that'll actually run throughout the race, and so it is doing exactly that. And here's the car that's chasing them, was about a minute behind as they both came into the pits. Warren Hughes in the Ginetta Zytek. This is the Kiefel ASM car, which was the previous Le Mans Series champion and ruled the roost in this LMP2 category, at least until this season began. So they are finding that what they've got is working just as efficiently as before, but as we've seen with Audi and Peugeot, the opposition have taken a step forward into the future and they're not able to match it. And now all they can do is do what they do and hope that it's enough.
Yeah, go for the reliability factor.
It's very interesting looking at the leading cars' times, because the Peugeots and the first two Audis, they're seesawing backwards and forwards. The times are there, but then you look down at Tom Christensen, and he really is going very well indeed, doing 323s, where the other cars doing 24s, 25s, 26s. So he's really on it at this time of the night.
I think he's a bit miffed, actually. I think that little collision that he had sort of rather put him into a situation which he doesn't like. There's no question about it. Tom's one of those people who thinks that this should be his personal race, and it's not going quite the way he wants it to be.
Well, of course, he's trying to make up time after a delay, as is Anthony Davidson. So the cars in 5th and 6th are both going quicker than anybody in front of them. The problem is they've got several laps to catch up, and they're not going to do it on pace. They're only going to do it if somebody else has a problem to match theirs. And you tend to find at Le Mans that if you have a problem, that's pretty much it. The car that wins is the one that runs trouble-free. At the moment, Stefan Sarazan leads for Peugeot from Luc Duval in the Orica Run Peugeot. That car you're looking at there, Andre Lotterer's Audi, is 4th. Best Audi is Romain Dumas in 5th. And then in 5th and 3rd rather, then 5th and 6th, the delayed cars of Tom Christensen for Audi and Anthony Davidson for Peugeot. And again, still the best of the non-diesel cars, 007, 009, the Lola Aston Martins. Quick break, we'll be back. Welcome back to Le Mans. Good timing, everybody. You rejoin us as our race leader is on pit road. Right down there, amongst all those orange or purple even vests, is this car, Stefan Sarazan's number 2 Peugeot. It's done 181 laps after nearly half the race. We're getting down, well, we're into 12 hours and 51 minutes remaining, so we're approaching the midway. We've just done 11 hours, and the car in for routine service now. Of course, it inherited the lead after problems for 2 cars that were running in front of it. Number 3 car with a suspension failure retired. Number 1 car with a problem with the electrics had a significant delay, and Anthony Davidson is 4 laps behind, trying desperately to catch. And the problem for this car, every time they try and go quickly, they use more fuel. Now, that sounds like a pretty staringly obvious problem. Don't go so quickly. But unfortunately, Jeremy Shaw, that's leaving them rather at the mercy of anyone else. When they try and up their pace to match their rivals, they don't make 12 laps on fuel, and nobody's quite sure why.
No, that's right, 12 laps as opposed to 13 laps. Yeah, it's at this stage it's really not particularly critical, I think, for that team at least, because they've got such a healthy margin over everybody else. I mean, it's not a huge margin by any means. I mean, it's just a little bit more than a lap over Romain Dumas in 3rd place in the first of the Audi. So, they've been, the last 2 or 3 hours, there really hasn't been much change at the front. It's kind of an interesting kind of seesaw battle there, but the advantage very definitely stands with Peugeot, and particularly that number 2 car, but they can't afford to relax. They just have to keep on doing what they're doing. And I just love watching that pit stop, the choreography of how the guys move around. There's only ever 2 people over that line at any one particular time, but there's about 5 or 6 people, I think, that are actually involved in that pit stop process, and absolutely fascinating to watch that unfold before our eyes there with that great camera work from the pit lane.
Just saw the little graphic there, 2 minutes 52 in the last lap between Stefan Sarazan in this car and his closest rival, Loic Duval. Loic Duval now turning 3-minute 23.0 lap on his last lap. That is the fastest car in the field by over 2 seconds. seconds. So he is absolutely on a tear. Obviously, soon to come into the pits because he's not that far off Sarrazan's schedule, but making the very most of the car on light fuel and presumably with a relatively clean lap as well. Now, dipping down into the LMP2 class as we look at the RML Lola with its HPD engine, that's had a bit of a delay. That has now slipped from third down into fifth, sixth position, and nicely bracketed by a pair of Ginettas, isn't it, Lawrence Tomlinson of Ginetta? Welcome.
Thank you very much. Well, it's certainly the race that I've started watching since Nigel crashed out early on, and it's an interesting battle for us. We always thought the HPDs were going to be too quick for us to catch, and you know, whether they're going to last 24 hours at this pace. It's a remarkable pace for LMP2, but if we were offered this at the start of the race, I think as Ginetta's I-Tech we would have taken it.
It does slightly look from the outside, and I don't know how much you sort of see this, as though maybe we're looking at a real generation change, and the Acura HPD package in both departments, it would seem, is another step forward. And is that something that Ginetta will sit down and think, okay, maybe it's time to get back to the drawing board and see how much we can advance this? Obviously, there's a whole new raft of rule changes coming in for 2011, some of which we may or may not be aware of, some of which may or may not change before they're finalised. But with that in mind, presumably you're already starting to make plans and scratch your head a bit.
Well, what we tend to do is look at the detail behind it, and you know, the Ginetta LMP2 car last year was absolutely blindingly fast, and it won the championship, so we were delighted with that. If you look at the detail, we have Danny Watts, who used to drive for me, and we've got Olivier Pla, who drove for me also at Petit Le Mans. So when you compare them as drivers, I know from their data there's absolutely nothing in them. So you then look at it and say, is it the car? And then you say, well, it could be the car, and you could also say there's a bit of a tyre battle going on there. The HPDs both